What's up, everybody? Franco here from Wisdify, and you're probably watching this video because you're gearing up for an accounting job interview. And if you're working in accounting, you already know that Excel can make or break your chances of success. Today, I'm revealing the must have Excel skills that will impress hiring managers and boost your confidence in the world of finance and accounting. If you master these, you'll handle everything from complex formulas to pivot table magic like a pro, and that will give you a competitive edge to land that dream job. All right, you ready? Let's get started. If you're looking at my screen right now, you should see a data set called Sales for the Day, and the first set of skills you need to master is, of course, your basic financial functions. Okay? So I say basic, but you actually have to know your whole tool set when it comes to manipulating financial data and even summarizing this for easy access, right? So things like your basic operators, and by that I mean your plus sign to add, minus to subtract, asterisk to multiply, and slash to divide, right? So for example, if we want to get total sales, we multiply unit price by the quantity, and you also have to know formulas such as your sum. You have to know average, all right? You have to know what else? Your min and your max, all right? So your minimum again returns the smallest amount in a data set. Your maximum will return the largest amount in a data set. And that's basically how you do it. Now, aside from this, you should also know your conditional financial functions or mathematical functions, things like SUMIF and SUMIFs and COUNTIFs as well, right? So if I want to get the quantity sold just for the mice or the mouses, however you want to say that. So I want to check my product column and I want to make sure that it's equal to my product on the left before I take the sum of my quantity. All right, so that's how easy it is to use the SUMIFs formula. COUNTIFs is very similar as well. You should know all of these functions so that you can make the most out of your accounting data, right? And the thing here is you can also add on your knowledge of VLOOKUPs. We have that here already. So this is actually an index match formula. And the closest counterpart to this, if you're using versions of Excel that are higher than Excel 2019, is the XLOOKUP formula. All right. So again, you should know your VLOOKUPs, your HLOOKUPs, your XLOOKUPs as well. Okay. So that is the first set of skills that you have to master, your basic formulas for manipulating financial data. But now we've been talking about numbers. What about the text? Okay, so you're not just going to be dealing with numbers, but those numbers are going to be tagged to descriptions or account titles and other data that is in text format. So the second set of skills that you need to master are your text formulas or how you manipulate text. I'm going to show you two things here, just concat and your text formulas. So there are a lot of ways that you can deal with text data. You have other formulas such as left, right, length, and then trim. Okay? So these actually return, except length, of course. So length just gives you how long the text is in a certain cell, but left, right, and trim actually give you parts of text. Okay? But what I'm going to show you is concat. So if you want to concatenate the first name and the last name, or you want to put them together, the formula that you're going to use here is concat. So you're going to select the data that you want to put together, just like this. All right, just select those cells, and there you have it. That's concatenate. As you can see, it's not really the best format right now. I'm missing something, and that's a space in between. So don't worry about that. If you're using concat, just put the things that you'd like to add in a quotation mark, right? Just like that. Quotation mark, space, quotation mark, and now I've added a space in between. And I can just drag this down. Now I have the full name, right? So concat works wonders, and it's not just for you to get something like a full name. Usually when you're in accounting and you want to cross-check a lot of the data that you're handling. You have to combine multiple keys together to make sure that you have a unique identifier when you're reviewing data and you want to make sure that things match or things don't, right? So I'm going to do something like CONCAT and I'm going to select all of this. So if you try to do it like this, that works too. All right. So one Alice Wonder North, there should be no copies here. I could use a COUNTIF function to make sure that I don't have any duplicates. And there you have it. Everything is bringing back number one. That means everything is unique. Okay. So that is how you would use the concat function usually. So again, it's to combine text. You can use it for presentation purposes. If you're an auditor, maybe you're using this for validation purposes. But another function that you need to know to ace your next interview is the text to function columns. And you can find that here in the data tab under your toolbar. So in the ribbon, you're going to see this function, text to columns. And what that does is basically it allows you to separate text based on a certain size or based on delimiters. So if you're not familiar with delimiters, these are just things that separate text. In here, we have the space, right? So let me just copy paste this to values so we don't have any problems demonstrating text to columns. For example, if first name and last name weren't given to me, and I want to get the first name and the last name, what I do here is basically use the text columns. So some people don't know about this. They type this all manually, or they have something like a formula to deal with this, or sometimes flash fill works nicely as well. So if I do flash fill, there you have it. It gave me recommendations. I press Control E, right? But this doesn't always work. So one thing that I can do here is I can select my data set where my names are, and then I can go to data and I can go to text to columns. And what's going to happen here is it's going to ask me if I want to separate text based on a fixed width, right? Or if I want to separate using a delimiter. So I'm going to choose delimiter because I know that my first names and my last names are separated simply by a space. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to choose my delimiter here. I click space and I get rid of tab because we don't really need that. And I click next. And now it's going to ask you if you want to import data and in what format you want to import that to. So for me, general is okay. And I want to import both columns. If you don't want to import one of the columns, just select that right here and click do not import. All right, but for now, I want that as my data set. I click finish, and now the first name is in one column, and the last name is in the next column. All right, so I can just fix that right there and put that into a table. There you go. Okay. So again, it's not just numbers that you have to deal with. You have to deal with the specific identifiers that are tagged to those numbers. Remember, numbers by themselves aren't that meaningful. They tell a story. So all of the numbers that you're going to be dealing with are definitely going to come with text. Okay? So you have to know how to manipulate text. That's it for number two. So far we've covered your financial formulas. And for number two, you have to cover your text manipulation. For number three, if you know about number one and number two, now you're actually ready to clean up data and you're ready to move on to reporting. But the thing is, if you're going to do reporting manually, you're going to copy paste some data, use your SUMIFs, COUNTIFs. If you're dealing with large quantities of data, well, that's going to eat up all of your time. So what's the third set of skills that you need to know? It's actually dealing with pivot tables. All right, so pivot tables are really, really important and they can save you a lot of time when you're summarizing data. To show you an example of pivot tables, I'm going to go back to my sales table. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of this and I'm going to the Insert tab on my toolbar and I'm going to click on Pivot Table, right? So you can choose whether you want to put this in a new worksheet or an existing worksheet, but I'm going to put it in a new worksheet, all right? And pivot tables actually allow you to summarize data with just a few clicks. So say, for example, I want to be able to summarize my sales by product, and I want to see the total sales that each product brings. Okay, so I want to see which one is the most profitable and which ones do I have to improve on or maybe even let go if it's not as profitable as I want it to be, right? So I click on total sales, and there you have it, right? With just a few clicks, all of the data is summarized for me. If I want to choose by region instead, so I want to draft a report on the sales per region, I can just click and there you have it. I can see that West brings in the most in total sales, right? Hey, what if I want to summarize by region and by product? Right? You can do that too. So we can click on product, and now per region, there's a breakdown of the sales per product, right? And if you don't like this presentation, you can also move your data into the columns to make a matrix, right? Pivot tables do that really quick for you, and it's really important that you learn them, okay? So number 4 is now you have all of the data from steps 1, 2, and 3. You can clean them up, you can manipulate data and bring out the key metrics that you want using your financial formulas. And now you can summarize all of that data really quickly using pivot tables. What do you need to know next? You actually have to help your stakeholders understand the reports that you generate. So it's not enough to show them tables, you have to know how to use charts. And when you're using charts, you can actually go into the Insert tab of your toolbar, and there's going to be a whole section on charts right here. So you have to know which charts to use to bring your message across, and you have to know how to use this data in conjunction with your charts. So, for example, if I want to summarize all of this data, let's start with something simple. For example, I want to see a visual of how much each region contributes to my grand total of sales. I can just select this data and I can insert a chart, right? So Excel will give you recommended charts. This is a really nice feature. But again, you have the freedom to choose whatever chart you want. Just make sure that you're using a chart that highlights the message that you want to say and it doesn't make it messy for your readers to understand your report. So usually if you're showing things as a component of a whole, the best type of chart to use would be the pie chart, just like this. So now stakeholders can see at a glance that, okay, the West region takes up most of the pie. It is what is contributing most to our sales. So we should take care of the West region. And if there are best practices in the West region that should be adopted in other regions, that is something that we should investigate. All right. So again, you have to know how to use charts. And a really quick bonus for you guys is combining your knowledge of pivot tables and charts by using the pivot chart function. So instead of creating a pivot table and then manually adding a chart, you actually have the option of using pivot charts. So what this looks like is I'm going to select this data again, and instead of inserting a pivot table, I'm actually going to insert a pivot chart. Once I click this, you're going to see a similar menu to when you're adding a pivot table. All I have to do is click OK. And now I have a pivot table and a pivot chart right here. So what is this going to look like? Whenever I click on data, Excel is automatically going to make charts for me. And again, I can always just change the chart by going to design and then changing the chart type. So I can put this back into a bar chart, right? Just like that. Or a pie chart, I mean. Sorry. But if I want to go back to a bar chart, I just click Control Z. And let's say I want to see a breakdown per region, per product. That's fine too. All right. So I actually want to put the region as the top priority. And there you have it. Another thing about pivot charts is that you have filters right here on them. So if I just want to see all of the sales for the West region, I can do that too. I leave it as the only field selected, and there you go. I can filter at the drop of a hat. If you don't want to do that in your charts, you can do that in your pivot table. And I'm going to clear the filter in the pivot table, and the chart adjusts along with it. Again, you have to be able to manipulate data, and alongside that, you need to be able to visualize that data for your stakeholders. All right? And that's 1 to 4. What is number 5? You're going to be doing a lot of processing. All right. And all of this processing will take a lot of time if you want to retain your sanity. And of course, if you want to highlight to the hiring managers that you are efficient and you can get more work done than other people applying for the same job, one thing that's going to set you apart is macros. So let me switch my data set real quick. Now, you should be seeing a set of data containing journal entries, and let's say that I need to fill out a trial balance. Okay? So now you know all of your COUNTIFs, your SUMIFs, all of those formulas. You also know your pivot tables and your pivot charts. But now you realize that it still takes time, no matter how much you know, right? And that's fine because you have another tool under your kit that will help you do that, and that is macros. So macros can be something that you can either record or you can make through Visual Basic Advanced. But for you, if you're not really heavy on the coding side, that's fine. You can just record your actions. So if you're doing something that is routinary, you know that you do it every day, and you're sick of doing it manually, you can just record your actions right here. So I'm actually going to do that. If you see an entry that you want to highlight, you want to select all of that, make it bold, italicize it. Now I just click stop, and I have that as a script. What that's going to do for me is if I want to do all of that all over again, I'm just going to click run. And what's going to happen here is, right? Right? It did all of that automatically for me. So this was a really simple recording, but I have one here loaded up that is much more complex. And if you take a look at my screen, so I have here a trial balance, and I'm going to run this script called tip 3. And just like that, Excel automatically filled out the trial balance for me. And as you can see, it's not balanced, which means I need to go back to my journal entries. Imagine spending all of this time manually just to figure out that there's something wrong with your journal entries, and you have to review all your data all over again, right? That's heartbreaking. But since you use the macro to do all of that automatically for you, you saved so much time, and now you also saved a lot of your sanity, right? So again, if you want to automate all of the things that you're doing, macros are the key for you, okay? So that is actually it. Congratulations to you. You now have the Excel toolkit you need to ace your next accounting interview. And if you think this is all you need to know in your career, well, you might be wrong. This is just the tip of the iceberg, and it's enough for you to get your foot in the door, but there's still so much for you to learn in Excel that will take your game to the next level. Things such as Power Query, Power Pivot, and all of these cool new tools that you didn't even know were there. But for now, this is all you need for your next accounting interview. Implement these skills and you'll stand out on any finance team. If you found this video useful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any insider tips. Don't forget to comment below with any interview questions or Excel challenges that you want us to tackle together next. And if you have other tips for fellow applicants, be sure to share the wealth. Thanks for watching. Good luck on your interview. I know you're going to nail it. Have a great day.